Good evening and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this evening. It just shows you when there's a slow news day, there's a lot of fake news going around. There's Brendan Rodgers stories going around. There's news about us making a £7 million offer for a player that was later denied. And it just shows you that everyone's trying to get a little bit of information about Celtic without knowing actually anything that's going on in Celtic. Now let's talk about the Brendan Rodgers one first of all, because I think it's important to see what the manager and the mindset of the manager. Having watched the interview, Brendan Rodgers, you might have missed it because there was only 4,790 people watched it. Brendan Rodgers did give a little interview that was put out on YouTube. The full version was going to be put out on Celtic TV, and the snippet that was put out on the free bit, since a lot of us have decided not to pay for Celtic TVs until there is change at the club. Brendan Rodgers says, I think it was a good opportunity over the course of the international break. We had some of the younger players get some game time, some minutes. We had Jamal Simpson-Pouzy play for the B team and we got beat 5-3. He also wanted use that time to develop some of their football fitness, and then it was good to have some rest as well. As we know, Brendan Rodgers was over in Ireland having some time off. He says it was good to let the players have the rest because we're coming back into a hectic schedule. We'd just been in a hectic schedule. He says we're preparing for another one. We want to get the performance levels higher and on a consistent basis. We want to be more consistent, and that's the way that we're aiming for. That's what Celtic's all about, playing these games and playing these big games. For us, the collective of being together as a whole, he basically went on to then say, look, I want to embrace it going forward. I want everyone fighting for the same cause. That is what Celtic is all about. Brendan Rodgers is obviously still trying to be peacemaker between board and fans. He's trying to sort of get everyone back online to focusing about the football. Never mind what's going on with the outside stuff. We're just here to talk about the facts of what's went on today. But Brendan Rodgers, he thinks that we should all be together. Do you believe him? And can we be all together at this time of disharmony? One of the Irish papers picked up that story also, saying that Celtic returned from international duty to take on Dundee Tayside this weekend. Brendan Rodgers is pleased that the Celtic spirit is strong as they search to get back to top form. He says it's going to take a bit of time, but whilst you're waiting for that, you just have to win games. Simple as that. We just have to win games until we get back. He says, we've shown glimpses of what we can do throughout the season so far, but it's not been consistent enough. The team is still winning domestically. That's been very important. You know, we're only 2 points off the top. I think that's really typified the mentality of the players over this period. You can't underestimate that, said Brendan. He says, we've played a number of games this season already, and we've had a few late winners on those games. That tells me that the spirit is strong within the team. The push that we get from the support is really galvanising the team. It says the team will go on to the very end. They will go on to the very end. And will the very end be the very end of Brendan Rodgers' tenure at Celtic? Because hail, hail 67. Yes, that once iconic Hail Hail, 67hailhail.com, sorry. Once that, it used to be a fantastic online article. It's now run by Rangers supporters, and they do a lot of articles about Rangers. But today, or yesterday, 2 days ago, or whatever it was, they came out with an article saying that Brendan Rodgers is not close to a new contract at Celtic. I think we all know that. There's nothing new. But the article did go on to say, talking about the fact that we've had 2 doubles under Brendan. It's been a difficult period this year, the disastrous summer window, and then it went on that they explained last week that conversations that had been held between Rodgers and the Celtic hierarchy over his future, with the club chiefs wanting him to sign fresh terms. I don't believe that the club want Brendan Rodgers to particularly. I think that there's a gap between what Celtic really want and what Brendan Rodgers wants. And I think that, Brendan Rodgers said at the beginning of the season, I need to prove that I'm worth of the new contract. Brendan Rodgers hasn't met his key performance indicators. Let's put it that way. He was brought back in to make Celtic dominant. He was brought back in to make Celtic well in the Champions League. He was brought back in to get Celtic winning trebles again, like he did the last time, and it's not worked. So when you look at it that way, I don't think that Celtic are pushing the boat out to keep Rodgers. Let's just say that. Because if they really wanted him to stay, they would have signed a contract by now. That's nonsense that, look, it was all down to the last transfer window. The talks took place before the transfer window really started. The talks took place in Mallorca during the closed season, before any pre-season shit started. Brendan Rodgers admitted that himself. Brendan Rodgers, the very first interview at the beginning of the season, says, yep, we had a meeting in Mallorca, had a nice lunch, away from prying eyes, and there was differences in what we want, differences in what Celtic want and what they think they should be achieved, and differences in what I want as a manager. And we were miles apart. That's the truth that we know. And Brendan Rodgers admitted that. But they went on with this article saying that that Brendan Rodgers is nowhere near close to an agreement. I think we all know he's leaving at the end of the season. But GRV media transfer correspondent Graham Bailey explained to us, this is who owns Hail Hail 67. He says, I'm told as it stands, Brendan Rodgers is expected to leave at the end of the season. No shit, Sherlock. You don't have to be a transfer correspondent to know that. Every fan knows that. It is believed he fancies his hand abroad. I think we all know that anyway. But a move back to England is an option, with the jobs at Bournemouth, Fulham and Crystal Palace. Dear God, Brendan can do better than Bournemouth, Fulham and Crystal Palace. Surely. I mean, would that not be going like... But then it goes on to say that, look, they do have managers in place, and it all depends on managers leaving those clubs. Bournemouth are sitting fourth or something. Anyway, it's a nonsense story. It is a nonsense story. The big news of the day for me is Celtic make a donation to the United World Food Programme, supporting humanitarian assistance in Gaza. Go on yourself, Celtic. They would have been as well putting up a Palestine flag right over the top of Celtic Park and waving it with this one. Celtic FC Foundation, charitable arm of the Celtic Football Club, announced a donation of £100,000 to the UN World Food Programme. Now remember, Celtic did have their annual dinner event down in London. Was it last week? One of the many of these black tie events that they have down in London, and they're all around getting money for the Celtic Foundation. And you can't knock it, because I totally back fans when they do stuff for Celtic Foundation stuff. I mean, Kaiser's got something coming up for the Celtic Foundation. They sleep out. I'm not sure if that's been or when that is. I'm not exactly sure. It's November, is it not? November, Kaiser's thing. But anyway, and I've done it. I've abseiled off the roof of Celtic main stand back in 2011 to raise money for the Celtic Foundation. So, for the fact that the Celtic Foundation has given £100,000 is a lot of money, a lot of cash. It's estimated that currently, and the Celtic website says it's estimated that currently 640,000 people in Gaza remain in conditions of famine. 132,000 children are at risk of death. Thought you weren't allowed to talk politics. I thought you weren't allowed to wave Palestine flags. But here we go. I'm reading this from the Celtic website. The Celtic FC Foundation, which primarily focuses on delivering its own initiatives within communities across Glasgow, London and Ireland, have previously responded to global humanitarian crisis in various areas across Africa, Ukraine, Syria, Turkey, Morocco and Mexico. The allocation aligns with the club's origins, that we are rooted in addressing poverty and hunger amongst marginalised communities in the East End of Glasgow. The foundation emphasises its commitment to neutrality on political issues, while prioritising humanitarian aid with the focus on practical support for those in need. The WFP was selected for its ongoing efforts to provide life-saving food assistance in Palestine, including the Gaza Strip, where many individual families depend on external support for survival. In addition, Celtic FC Foundation has allocated another £100,000 to extend its Paradise Pit Stop initiative and investing in its existing community partners to provide food for people who cannot make it to Celtic Park. This on top of the $300,000 a year foundation invests into Celtic Park for the Feed the People 4 times a week. Celtic FC Foundation range of other activities include domestic projects such as fuel voucher distributions in Scotland, annual Christmas appeal aimed at marginalised families and individuals, and community-based health inclusion projects, alongside significant international outreach work across the US, Malawi and Zambia. Fair play to the Celtic Foundation. I've got a lot of time for the Celtic Foundation and what they do and the guys that run it. And the guys that run it have got the best intentions in the world with everything that they do. You know, I'm not going to have, as a 15th, Stephen Johnson said it's the 15th, I'll just get that up on the screen. Where's Stephen? Stephen Johnson says the sleep out is the 15th of November, which is a fantastic, and we will be going live hopefully that night with Kaiser to try and raise more money for the Celtic Foundation on that night. I think it's admirable that whenever anybody does anything for the Celtic Foundation, it needs to be back to 110%. The work that people do that goes unnoticed, really, at Celtic, it doesn't go unnoticed at all, but I think that it could be publicised a lot more than it actually is. But anyway, for me, that's the big news today, and it was a big one that, you know, the Celtic website are talking about giving aid to people in Gaza, and currently talking about the 640,000 people in Gaza in conditions of famine. Well, people say that will be the PR company working its magic. But anyway, another piece of interesting news tonight is that Celtic have paid quite a lot of money to Police Scotland over the last 4 years. It's Celtic have paid quite a lot of money per game. It's fucking unbelievable, actually. Anyway, we move on from that. Right, let's get to the transfer speculation. I got a text earlier this morning saying that there was Celtic were about to bid 7 million or 6 million for Bobby Clark from Red Bull Salzburg in January. The attacking midfielder is currently on loan at Derby County. And it was suggested that Celtic were going to make an offer for it. It was then said later on that it's a nonsense story. It's complete. Nobody has made contact with them, and it's complete nonsense. So it just shows you, with a very, very slow news day, there's it's interesting, the one with Brendan Rodgers, the interview talking about togetherness at the heart the collective spirit and the togetherness that's at the heart of what we do. We are excited for the games ahead. Of course they are. I mean, I think that Brendan Rodgers and the team, if Brendan Rodgers will tell the players, do you know, whatever's going on in the stands, whatever's going on outside, don't stay off social media. And I think that a lot of the Celtic players don't have social media. A lot of the Celtic players have very private social media and only allow certain people to comment. And I think the best thing that Celtic players can do is just completely focus on the football. Because I think that when we start focusing on the football and we get back to playing fast attacking pace football, I think that, you know, it will go a long way to getting us being back in love with watching Celtic again. Because that's what Brendan Rodgers has got his work cut out for, is getting the team. He knows that the team haven't been performing. He knows that the players are off the pace a bit. But he also knows that he's seen a glimpse of it over the season so far. And listen, the league doesn't lie. The league table doesn't lie at all. We're off the pace by 2 points. You know, at this point in the season, that's nothing to worry about. Because I think the time we come round and play Hearts, I think it will beat Hearts. And I think when you look into the fixtures that are coming up, I think if we can go in, it's 2 days, 15 hours, 43 minutes and 2 seconds at this current point until the next Celtic game up in Dens Park. I think we'll get a good result up in Dundee, even though the ex-Celtic defender, stroke Hearts defender, stroke Scotland defender, fancies an upset. I think we'll get the result up in Dundee. I think it'll be quite a comfortable result up in Dundee. The big one for me is the Sturm Graz game. I think that Celtic need to go into that game next Thursday, a week tonight, with a big attitude from the players. We'll find out tomorrow from Brendan Rodgers what the situation is with injured players returning from international duty. But I think if we get a big performance at Celtic Park, and yes, there won't be the noise at Celtic Park. Yes, there will be some kind of disruption by certain factions, and, you know, there'll be protesting and whatever. But I really think that if we want, are we just going to dismiss the Europa altogether? The Celtic players don't want to dismiss it. The manager certainly doesn't want to dismiss it, because if he has a really bad run in Europe with Celtic this year, it affects his managerial positions going forward. It then has clubs that maybe thought, let's look at Brendan Rodgers. He did well before with Celtic. He did well with Liverpool. He did okay with Leicester, you could say, but then they went downhill. Do you take that chance on him? What did he do in Europe last season? Celtic were a shambles in the Europa. You know, and if that was to be the case, you're getting a lot of clubs that are then going to go, I think Brendan's maybe on the downward spiral. And as a manager, and then the position, the clubs that you're in offered the chance to even go into talks to starts to diminish. And then when we come up to the end of the month, 26th of October, we've got the away game at Hearts. That'll take care of itself with that tiny, minuscule little 650 fans that get to go to the Hearts game. And I think if we beat Hearts, we go top of the table. Will that change anything? Don't think so. And then we get to the end of the month on a Wednesday night, the 29th of October. We have a game back at Celtic Park, the Falkirk game at Celtic Park. And I think that will be an easily won game also. So if we can go into this final block of this month, I know it's a kind of shorter month when it comes to the games, but if we can go into this block and we can have little increments of success, we're getting better and better each game. Because let's face it, we want to be hitting a certain level, because the time that we get to the 2nd of November and getting away from the fan issues, just everyone that will go to Hampden that day will want us to win, and will want us to win convincingly. And there's nothing better than going to Hampden and shutting that lot up. And there's nothing worse than going to Hampden and getting beat by that lot. Nothing worse. And if we were to get beat by that lot at Hampden, in the total disarray that club is in, that would be the biggest embarrassment of the season. That would be a bigger embarrassment for me than getting knocked out of the Champions League. Just going to say that. I think it would. But anyway, that's a long time away, because then we get into the November period, and that's when the games come thick and fast. We've got the game on the 2nd of November, we've got a game on the 6th of November, a game on the 9th of November. And then a game that is the break for the next round at the Cup, potentially. And then you've got the game for, you've got St Mirren on the 22nd, you've got Feyenoord on the 27th, and then you end the month with away to Hibernian. 2 months in a row we end away to a club in Edinburgh. And then we go into the December period, which is just as mad. Anyway, it's a fantastic time to be going and watching football, or is it? Because Celtic are playing this nonsensical side-to-side stuff and not listening to Brendan Rodgers. The fun and joys of supporting Celtic, eh? Saying that, came at the shower to Alam Buna, waiting for me. There we go. Just blame Brendan. He's got the backroom staff on him still. With their players, I wouldn't be overly confident. Overly confident about getting a good run of results. That's true, isn't it? But anyway, that's enough of the negativity tonight. I shall see you first thing in the morning, where we can talk about all things Celtic, and we can start looking forward to the game this weekend. Finally back to watching football, because I've not watched any over the international break, and it's a killer. On that note, have an absolutely fantastic evening, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world.